Welcome back to Self-Love Ignited. On today's episode, we are talking about the power of owning your story. Now, this is a short and sweet episode, but it is really going to inspire you and help you act and step into your power, regardless of where you are, regardless of whether you think you have much of a story, regardless of whether you think your story is worthy of being heard. Listen in, okay? This is a really great podcast, and I hope that it is going to inspire you to step up to the plate. The world is waiting for you. My name is Katie Allen, and this is Self-Love Ignited. Let's get to it. Welcome back to Self-Love Ignited. Today we are talking about the power of owning your story. Okay, and I am actually really excited to do this episode. It's not going to be a long one, but I think so often when we are on this journey of self-love or really struggling with our relationship with ourselves, we don't want to own our story, right? We want to push it away or push it down or ignore it, or we don't see the value in our stories and in all of the beautiful things that make us unique. But there is so much value in that. And I'm really passionate about talking about owning your story because this is literally how this podcast started. That is literally the foundation on which Self-Love Ignited is built. So for those of you who have not been listening since the beginning, maybe you just pop in here and there. That's awesome. That's super cool. This podcast started in June of 2020. So we were in the middle of the COVID sort of lockdown. It wasn't really a lockdown where I lived, but it was like in the middle of one of the waves. The world was changing. A lot more people were moving online. And I had this idea to start a podcast for a long time, but I didn't really know what to say or what value I would bring. And I started hearing from women, from friends, from other women in my circles, both in person and online. I need more stories. I need more stories. You know, talking about self-love, talking about body image, it kind of seemed like very disconnected for a lot of them. Like, that's nice, but that's somebody else. Somebody else can do that. That would never work in my life. Does this sound familiar? I could never learn to love myself. I could never accept myself. I could never make peace with my body. That's a reality for other people and not for me. And what I was hearing is, you know, if I could hear how somebody just like me could do it, then maybe I could believe it. If I could see how another entrepreneur could do this and how it would impact her business, then maybe I could do it. If I could hear how another, mom with 3 kids at home could really learn to love herself and prioritize her well-being, then maybe I could do it. And I was just getting again and again that these women needed stories. And I think this really highlights a very important point, that the internet, that, there's so many beautiful things out there, but there's a lot of tips and strategies. And I mean, sometimes that is what's on this podcast, right? There is totally a time and a place for that. But I think that stories are widely, they're just really underused. And as women specifically, I think we connect so well through stories. One of our superpowers is that we can connect through stories, and we can connect heart to heart really quickly. Of course, men can do this too, but I think just sort of on average, it is generally easier for women to do this. We dive in, we get to the good stuff, we get to the nitty gritty emotional details really quickly, and that stuff lies within your story. Now, at the beginning, I said, one of the things that I said is that there's a lot of oh, but is my story worth telling? I'm not there yet. I haven't reached the goal yet. I don't really love myself yet. I'm still really struggling with my body image, or I'm still really struggling to be visible, or I'm still really struggling with all of these these stories and these programs running in the background telling me I'm not good enough. I can't tell my story yet. And listen, I'm calling you out on that. There is no destination on this journey of learning to love yourself. This is going on for your entire life. Every single one of us is on this path. We are all just at different parts along the path. Okay, so maybe you're listening and you're like, I don't love myself at all. In fact, maybe I really hate myself, or I'm really disconnected, or I like loathe the body that I'm in. It just means that you're near the beginning. Whereas somebody like myself, obviously I have this podcast, right? This is something I'm passionate about. I've been doing this work. I'm going to be farther down the track from you because I can look in the mirror and really, truly, honestly say, I love myself and I love my story and I love what's got me here. But that doesn't mean that I'm at some magical place where everything's perfect, right? It's really just that I have created a more solid foundation to work from, but every day I am still walking this path. I'm still doing this. And every story at every single point along that path is valid, is worthy. And if you tell your story where you are right now, you are going to help somebody else. And I think that that's something that we downplay a lot in our own heads. Right? It's so easy to just be like, oh, my story's I'm not there yet. Like my story doesn't deserve to be told. Who am I going to help? Let me tell you, you're going to help the person who is 2 steps behind you. There is always somebody 2 steps behind you. There is always somebody still struggling with something that you have overcome or that you are working to overcome. And when you get brave and when you step up and you tell your story, just like every single one of my podcast guests who I have on here, when you step up and you tell your story, regardless of where you are on that journey, you are giving permission to another woman who listens to that. You're giving her permission to go, okay, maybe I can do this. Maybe I can take that step. Maybe I can learn to be okay with myself. Right? You're giving her permission, but you are leading from your heart. You are leading from this place of empowerment and from owning your story. And owning it, by the way, does not mean in any way that your story is perfect. It does not mean in any way that like everything is just perfect and beautiful and I love every single thing that's ever happened to me. Not at all. Owning your story really just means this is me. The good, the bad, the ugly, the ups and downs. This is me, putting it out there. And you don't, just to be clear, I'm not talking about owning your story necessarily like publicly on the internet. Not everybody wants to do that. Not everybody wants to come on a podcast and be a guest and like spill their guts. That's cool. You don't need to. I'm talking about doing it in a way that feels really good to you. Right? And on top of this, I really want to add, if you are a business owner and you have an online business, I know that many, many people who listen to this podcast do, right? I know that that's a lot of you identify as business owner or entrepreneurs. The next step in this is that when you own your story, when you step into that space, when you feel empowered to share your truth, you are going to connect with your audience in such a beautiful way and a really deeply impactful way as well. Nobody buys from a business because they are the only one who offers that service most of the time, right? There are thousands of nutritionists in the world. There are thousands of yoga teachers. There are thousands of coaches. Your modality is not what makes you unique. You are. You are the secret sauce in your business and not you, shiny, perfect you. You, your truth, your story. That is the secret sauce. That is what is going to magnetize people to come towards you. So if you are a business owner, this is like so much more important. But even if you don't own a business, you can still totally impact the people in your life, your friends, your family. Give them permission to grow and to rise and to step onto this journey with you, right? Step up to the plate. So for you to own your story, I really want to first of all encourage you to subscribe to this podcast because all of the interview episodes that I do are women telling their stories. And by listening to other women tell their stories, it can really empower you to step up and do the same thing. So please make sure that you subscribe, whatever platform you're watching this on, whether you're watching the video, whether you're watching the audio or listening to the audio, I should say, it doesn't really matter, but wherever you prefer to listen, please make sure that you subscribe and tune into those interview episodes. And if it feels safe to do so right now, start sharing your story. This could be with your sister or your brother or a friend or your partner, but begin to take those baby steps, because when you start, it is powerful and it is transformational, and you are going to change the world simply by being you, by stepping into who you are in this very moment, imperfect, up, down, right? That is how you're going to change the world, is by being you. That is your power. Own it. It's totally your time. Thank you for being here. Thank you for spending this time with me. So much love to you. I'll see you very soon.